The global herbal supplement industry is currently a $177 billion behemoth, with the average consumer in the US and EU spending upwards of $56 every single month on plastic bottles filled with hope. But here is the silent scientific scandal. That $100 bottle of high-potency herbal capsules you just bought might be almost entirely useless. Recent lab analyses and legal filings against major wellness conglomerates have revealed a shocking truth. Your body often absorbs less than 10% of the active compounds in dried, encapsulated herbs. You are essentially paying a premium price for expensive, neon-colored urine. The industry sells us convenience, but they've ignored a fundamental biological reality. The human digestive system was never designed to break down the rigid, reinforced cellulose walls of dried plants in a pill form. While you struggle to digest a $55 bottle of standardized extract, a $2 handful of raw herbs combined with a 7-day fermentation process creates a living tonic where bioavailability is boosted by over 400%. Why are the world's largest food corporations, some of whom have recently acquired gut health brands for nearly $2 billion, keeping this ancient kitchen science in the shadows? Are you paying for a cure, or are you just funding a commercial illusion? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll know how to unlock the hidden medicine the industry doesn't want you to find. We live in an era where health has been distilled into a convenient, swallowable geometry. Every year, millions of health-conscious individuals across the United States and Europe walk into sleek wellness boutiques or browse high-end digital storefronts, looking for a shortcut to vitality. They are greeted by an army of amber glass bottles, minimalist labels, and the seductive promise of 100% organic cold-pressed herbal extracts. This is the pinnacle of the modern wellness industrial complex, a market that doesn't just sell nutrients, but sells the illusion of biological efficiency. The core of this multi-billion-dollar illusion lies in a clever psychological bait-and-switch. We have been conditioned to believe that industrial processing, the high-tech grinding, the precise encapsulation, and the standardization of herbs somehow makes them superior to the raw, messy forms found in nature. We see a price tag of $75 for a bottle of ashwagandha or turmeric capsules, and our brains instinctively correlate that cost with potency. We assume that because a corporation has invested millions in a sterile manufacturing facility, they must have found a way to deliver the plant's magic more effectively than a traditional kitchen preparation could. But look closer at the fine print. Behind the high-potency claims is a staggering reality of waste. The supplement industry thrives on input marketing, telling you how many milligrams of a herb they put into the capsule, while remaining dangerously silent about how much actually gets into your bloodstream. In 2015, the New York Attorney General's office conducted a landmark investigation into major retailers like GNC, Target, and Walmart. The results were devastating. 4 out of 5 of the herbal supplements tested didn't even contain the herbs listed on their labels. Often they were filled with nothing more than powdered rice, asparagus, or even houseplants. Even when the herb is present, it is often in a dead state. Once a plant is harvested, dried, pulverized into a fine dust, and sat on a shelf for 18 months, its volatile oils and delicate enzymatic structures, the very things that trigger healing, have long since evaporated. Yet the marketing machine marches on, convincing us that the more scientific the packaging looks, the better it works. We are paying for the plastic, the shipping, the celebrity endorsements, and the corporate overhead, leaving only a fraction of our investment for the actual medicine. Is it possible that our obsession with the cleanliness and convenience of pills has actually disconnected us from the very biology we are trying to fix? If these capsules were truly the breakthrough they claim to be, why are chronic gut issues and inflammatory diseases still skyrocketing in the very populations that consume the most supplements? Why are we settling for expensive, standardized mediocrity when the real power of the plant kingdom remains locked behind a door that the industry refuses to open? Tension point. The realization that standardization is often just a code word for industrial convenience at the expense of our health and our wallets. Rhetorical questions. If you pay $60 for a bottle, but your body only recognizes $6 worth of it, Who is the supplement really for, you or the shareholders? Have we traded true botanical potency for the mere convenience of a pill that our bodies weren't built to recognize? To understand why your premium herbal capsules are failing, we must first look at the architectural masterpiece that is a plant cell. Every medicinal herb, be it turmeric, oregano, or echinacea, locks its most valuable compounds behind a fortress known as the plant cell wall. This wall is constructed from a complex matrix of cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin. These are among the toughest organic structures on Earth. Lignin, in particular, is what gives trees their strength to stand hundreds of feet tall. It is designed to be indestructible. Herein lies the biological trap. The human digestive system is remarkably poorly equipped to breach these walls. Unlike ruminants such as cows, humans do not possess the specialized enzymes, specifically cellulose, or the multi-chambered stomachs required to ferment and break down these rigid plant fibers in real time. When you swallow a capsule filled with dried powdered herbs, you are essentially dropping microboulders into your stomach acid. While the acid can dissolve the plastic or gelatin shell of the capsule in minutes, it barely makes a dent in the reinforced cellulose structures of the herb itself. This leads to a disastrously low rate of bioavailability. In the world of pharmacology, bioavailability is the percentage of a substance that actually enters the systemic circulation to produce a biological effect. For many popular herbal supplements, this number is embarrassingly low. Take curcumin, the active compound in turmeric, for example. Clinical studies have shown that when consumed in its standard dried form, bioavailability is often near zero. The compound is too large, too hydrophobic, and too well protected by its original plant matrix to be absorbed by the human small intestine. Instead, it simply transits through your system and is excreted. Furthermore, many of the most potent healing molecules in plants, such as polyphenols and flavonoids, often exist in what scientists call a bound state. They are chemically hitched to sugar molecules or fiber strands. In this bound form, they are biologically inactive. To unlock them, a specific chemical reaction must occur to strip away the sugar, a process called deglycosylation. If your gut microbiome is already compromised, which is true for a vast majority of the modern population, you lack the microbial workers necessary to perform this unlocking service. The supplement industry's solution is to offer standardized extracts, which use harsh chemical solvents like hexane or ethanol to force these compounds out of the plant. But this often destroys the delicate entourage effect, the synergy of hundreds of secondary metabolites that make the herb effective in the first place. We are left with a choice: a dead powder that our bodies can't crack open, or a chemically stripped extract that lacks the plant's original soul. Is it any wonder that after months of consistent supplementation, so many people feel absolutely no difference in their health? Tension point: the realization that we are literally throwing money at a biological wall that our bodies were never designed to climb. Rhetorical questions. If the most powerful medicine in the world is trapped inside a microscopic cage that you cannot open, is it really medicine at all? Why are we trying to force our stomachs to do a job that nature intended for a different process entirely? If the human stomach is a furnace that often fails to burn through the logs of dried herbal cellulose, then fermentation is the specialized laboratory that does the work for us before the first sip. In scientific terms, fermentation is not just a preservation technique. It is a profound process of biotransformation. It acts as an external stomach, performing the grueling task of pre-digestion that our own bodies are biologically incapable of completing. The magic happens through the metabolic activity of beneficial bacteria and wild yeast. When you place raw herbs into a fermentation medium, whether it's a brine, honey, or a sugar water base, you are initiating a microscopic demolition crew. These microbes secrete specific enzymes, including the elusive cellulose, which systematically dismantle the rigid lignin and cellulose walls we discussed earlier. As these walls crumble, the trapped medicinal compounds are released into the liquid, effectively liberated from their microscopic prisons. But the transformation goes much deeper than simple liberation. During fermentation, microbes engage in a process called bioconversion. They take complex large molecules like ginsenosides in ginseng or curcuminoids in turmeric, and break them down into smaller, simpler forms known as aglycones. These aglycones are the true biological currency of the human body. They are small enough to pass through the intestinal lining and enter the bloodstream with almost zero resistance. Research published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry has demonstrated that the fermentation of certain herbs can increase the bioavailability of polyphenols by over 400% compared to their unfermented counterparts. While a standard herbal pill might offer a 5 to 10% absorption rate, a fermented tonic can push that number toward 80 or 90%. You aren't just getting more of the herb, you are getting it in a language your cells can actually understand. Furthermore, fermentation adds a layer of protection that no industrial capsule can match: organic acids. As the microbes consume sugars, they produce lactic acid, acetic acid, and gluconic acid. These acids act as natural chelating agents, binding to minerals and antioxidants, preventing them from being degraded by your stomach acid and ensuring they reach the small intestine intact. We are talking about a living, breathing delivery system, one that evolved over millennia, yet is now being replaced by static, inert powders and plastic shells. Tension point: the realization that the most advanced delivery technology for medicine isn't owned by a pharmaceutical giant, but exists for free in the air around us, waiting for a jar and a bit of patience. Rhetorical questions. Why are we paying for high-tech liposomal delivery systems when a simple jar of fermented herbs achieves a higher absorption rate for the cost of a few pennies? Is it possible that the gut health we are searching for in a bottle can only be found in the very process the industry has taught us to fear? History is often written by the victors, and in the world of medicine, the victors were the industrial pharmaceutical giants of the early 20th century. Before the era of mass-produced white powders and synthetic coatings, the relationship between humans and herbs was profoundly different. It was a relationship based on time, transformation, and a deep intuitive understanding of microbial partnership. From the Oxymels of ancient Greece, a potent fermentation of honey, vinegar, and herbs, to the herb-infused kvass of Eastern Europe, our ancestors knew something that we have spent billions of dollars to forget. Herbs are not meant to be swallowed dry. In the quiet apothecaries of medieval European monasteries, monks didn't just grind herbs, they brewed them. They understood that the spirit, or the virtue of the plant, required a medium to come alive. They created botanical meads and fermented elixirs, where the wild yeast from the local air would slowly pull the essence out of roots and barks. In East Asia, the tradition of koso, or enzyme drinks, involved layering medicinal plants with sugar to create a high osmotic environment that forced the plant's cellular juices out, allowing a slow, year-long fermentation to create a concentrate so bioavailable that only a few drops were needed for a therapeutic effect. So, why did this knowledge vanish? The answer is simple. You cannot patent a 7-day fermentation process in a glass jar, and you certainly cannot scale it to millions of consumers with the click of a button. Fermentation is slow, it is variable, and it requires a human connection to the process. As the world moved toward convenience culture, the industry realized that it was much more profitable to sell a shelf-stable, inert pill than a living, bubbling tonic. They traded the enzymatic complexity of a fermented extract for the logistical simplicity of a warehouse-friendly capsule. They branded these traditional methods as unscientific, unsanitary, or primitive. They taught us to fear the bubbles in a jar and the sediment at the bottom of a bottle, while simultaneously selling us probiotic supplements, often containing dead bacteria, at a 1,000% markup. We were told that progress meant moving away from the kitchen and into the pharmacy. But as we look at the modern epidemic of malnutrition amidst plenty, where people take dozens of supplements yet remain chronically inflamed, we must ask ourselves if we have made a terrible bargain. We have sacrificed the deep biological efficacy of our ancestors for a sterile, industrial convenience that barely scratches the surface of our cellular needs. Tension point: the realization that the primitive methods of our ancestors were actually more scientifically aligned with our biological reality than the modern supplement industry. Rhetorical questions. Why did we let a century of marketing convince us that a laboratory-made pill is safer than a 1,000-year-old kitchen tradition? Are we truly modernizing our health, or are we just becoming efficiently disconnected from the sources of our vitality? The most subversive act you can perform in a consumerist society is to create your own medicine in your own kitchen. For less than the price of a single cup of coffee, you can produce a month's supply of a living tonic that outperforms the most expensive designer supplements on the market. This isn't just a recipe, it is a protocol for reclaiming biological sovereignty. To begin, you only need 3 fundamental elements: your chosen herb, a fermentation medium, and time. Let's take the example of an herbal honey electuary or a botanical Oxymel. If you are using a potent herb like ginger or rosemary, which the industry would happily sell you for $50 in pill form, you start by gently bruising the fresh or high-quality dried herb to increase surface area. Place these into a clean glass jar. Now, instead of swallowing them dry, you submerge them in a mixture of raw apple cider vinegar and raw honey. The vinegar, with its acetic acid, acts as a solvent that begins the breakdown of the plant's cell walls. The raw honey provides the necessary sugars and wild yeast to fuel the fermentation engine. Within 48 hours, the jar will begin to breathe. Tiny bubbles of carbon dioxide will rise to the surface. This is the sound of the microscopic demolition crew we discussed earlier. They are systematically stripping the sugar molecules away from the medicinal polyphenols, converting them into those highly absorbable aglycones. Unlike a static pill, this tonic is a dynamic environment. Over the course of 7 to 14 days, the pH of the liquid drops, creating a protective barrier that keeps harmful bacteria at bay while concentrating the plant's essence. You don't need a degree in chemistry to know when it's ready. Your senses have evolved over millions of years to recognize the tang of a successful ferment. When the liquid has deepened in color and developed a complex, slightly sour, and aromatic profile, the medicine is unlocked. A single tablespoon of this liquid contains more bioavailable compounds and living enzymes than an entire handful of industrial capsules. You are no longer dealing with a dead powder. You are ingesting a living system designed to integrate seamlessly with your gut microbiome. This is the $2 masterpiece that the $177 billion industry hopes you never learn to make. Because once you understand the power of your own kitchen, their amber plastic bottles lose all their magic. Tension point: the realization that the most effective health tool is remarkably simple, cheap, and accessible to anyone with a kitchen counter. Rhetorical questions. If a 7-day jar on your counter provides more benefit than a 60-day supply of expensive pills, why are we still lining the pockets of supplement CEOs? Is it time to stop being a passive consumer of wellness and start being an active participant in your own biology? When we weigh the evidence, the verdict is mathematically and biologically clear. The industrial herbal capsule is a product of logistics, while the fermented tonic is a product of biology. In a direct comparison, the supplement industry often fails the most basic test of value. You are paying a 2,000% markup for a delivery system, the plastic bottle and the cellulose capsule, that actually hinders your body's ability to use the medicine inside. While a standardized pill offers the comfort of a measured dose, that dose is often a ghost number because it doesn't account for the cellular walls that prevent absorption. In contrast, the DIY fermented tonic provides a lower concentration of raw material, but a significantly higher concentration of usable medicine. However, moving from a passive consumer to an active producer requires a new kind of responsibility. The reason the industry moved toward dry pills is partially due to the obsession with absolute sterility. When you engage with living fermentation, you are working with a wild biological process. It is essential to respect the rules of this craft. Always ensure your glass vessels are sterilized and your ingredients are free from heavy pesticides, as fermentation can concentrate whatever is present in the plant. Safety in fermentation is governed by pH. A successful herbal ferment should drop below a pH of 4.6, creating an acidic environment where pathogenic bacteria like botulism simply cannot survive. If you see fuzzy mold or smell a putrid, rotten odor rather than a clean, sour tang, the batch must be discarded. Furthermore, because these tonics are far more bioavailable than pills, they can interact more intensely with pharmaceutical medications. For example, a fermented ginger or garlic tonic can significantly thin the blood. If you are on anticoagulant medication, the unlocked potency of these herbs could be dangerous without professional medical supervision. The goal is not to be reckless, but to be informed. We are trading the fake safety of a factory-sealed bottle for the true mastery of a well-maintained kitchen. By understanding the science of acidity, the reality of cell walls, and the power of microbial transformation, you are no longer a victim of wellness marketing. You are an architect of your own health. Tension point. The shift from being a customer who trusts a label to an artisan who trusts their own senses and scientific understanding. Rhetorical questions. Are we willing to trade the sterile illusion of a pill for the vibrant, slightly unpredictable power of a living medicine? Now that you know the industry's secret, can you ever look at a $55 bottle of standardized powder the same way again? The modern wellness industry has spent decades convincing us that health is something that can be manufactured, standardized, and sold in a plastic bottle. They have taken the vibrant, complex wisdom of the botanical world and reduced it to a convenient but biologically inert powder. We have been led to believe that the more we spend, the healthier we become, ignoring the fundamental scientific truth that our bodies don't recognize a price tag. They recognize a biological language. The bioavailability trap is a symptom of a larger disconnection. When we choose a $55 pill over a $2 jar of fermented herbs, we aren't just losing money, we are losing our connection to the living processes that sustain us. We are trading the patient, microbial alchemy of our ancestors for a sterile industrial illusion. But the bubbles in your fermentation jar are proof that you don't need a billion-dollar laboratory to unlock the medicine of the earth. You only need the courage to look past the marketing and return to your own kitchen. It is time to question everything you've been told about convenience. It is time to rethink what potency really means. If you are ready to reclaim your health from the clutches of corporate wellness and rediscover the forgotten science of nature, subscribe and join us. Leave a comment below. Have you ever felt that your supplements weren't working? Are you ready to start your first ferment? Let's bridge the gap between ancient wisdom and modern science together. Your journey back to biological sovereignty starts now.